Well, good evening, listeners. You're listening to Lament of Hope podcast, and I'm your host, Danielle Richardson. And again, if you enjoy listening to these stories and watching them, please do subscribe. It's a great way to support the podcast, as well as those that I interview, so you can see more of their work. And today I'm actually interviewing David Small. I came across his memoir called Stitches, which is illustrated and written by him. And it's a very powerful memoir about his growing up years. Um, and it just really struck a chord with me just for my own personal life. But I think for a lot of people, at least that in my life, I think this would be an encouragement to them or something they could resonate with. It did become a New York Times bestseller as well as a National Award book finalist. But David Small now, he's an illustrator. He's illustrated for approximately like 40 different books. He's been in the New York Times. He's been in the New Yorker for his illustrations. Um, and so it's something that honestly seemed to become a lifeline for him and something that became his career. And now I'll have a link to his website as well underneath this podcast, and you'll be able to see his illustrations and more of his work if you want to look into it more. But David, I want to thank you for taking the time to be on the podcast today.
Well, thanks for asking me. I'm flattered.
Well, David, I kind of want to start out to ask you, if you had to, I know your memoir is called Stitches.
Mhm.
Um, but if you had to pick a word to kind of give a summary of your life, what do you think you'd pick?
A summary of my life. Hmm. One word or a phrase. That's a hard one. Uh, I just turned 80 last month, and who would have ever thought that I would live that long? So I guess what I'm talking about is a survivalist
Hmm.
memoir. Um, I've been through, I've had many medical problems. The first one is what I wrote about in Stitches, and they've all grown out of that. Um, as you know, if you've read the book, which you did, my father gave me, my radiologist father gave me massive high dose radiation when I was a child, just an infant. And it seems as if everything that followed medically, all of my medical problems sprang from that original uh, radiation. And it's been interesting, one thing after another. And yet here I am in pretty good health at 80 years old.
I know this may sound like a weird question. I'll be honest with you. I actually recently had a conversation with someone and they said, I want to live past 100. And I said, not me. I don't want to live that long. I'd be happy to live like till 75. I said, "Oh, it may be. I'd be happy to live that long. I think I also just never believed, just with my own struggles, that I will live very long. It's just always been in my back of my mind that I won't. And so it's interesting that you say that you're a survivalist. Do you did you want to live this long? Like, has it surprised you in a way, or um do you want to live like to be over 100? And that's like a big goal for you, and you would love that.
Well, the way things are going uh, with the world, with our country, uh, in general, I don't want to see what's coming next. So I
Mm.
guess the answer is no, I'm not really anxious to live to 100. But on the other hand, I have a wonderful marriage to a wonderful friend. And she and I have been together 40 years already. And uh, I don't want to leave her. I don't want her to leave me. I want to enjoy as long as I've got with her, so as long as I can have. And that's something to live for.
Mm.
More of Sarah. Um, but life is life, and you take what you have, you take what you're given. Uh, I don't know what else to say.
No, yeah, that's real. I mean, it's true, it's real.
Mm,
Um, what do you love to do most with Sarah? Like, I was asking someone, an interviewee, what her favorite part of the day was with her spouse, and she said it was holding his hand at night. They had to be
mm,
in separate beds because of just different medical conditions they had, and so they each needed a different type of bed. Um, and she said that they would hold hands as they fell asleep, and then they would hold hands when they woke up.
mm.
And I thought it was so sweet. Um, and so I wondered for you, what is your favorite moment with Sarah during the day, or just something you really enjoyed doing with her?
We spend a lot of time together. We have lunch every day, which is a pleasant experience. Just talking about whatever's going through our mind or whatever we're going through. Uh, we share a lot. Uh, we have a we have a couple of houses on 11 acres by a river here in Michigan, and there's a lot of maintenance things that we share. She's taken care of it mostly, but lately, in the last couple of years, it's been difficult for her because she has had long COVID, and that's very exhausting, And so I'm helping her more and more with just, I'm not talking about big maintenance, but just around the house with shopping and so on. And it's a pleasure for me to help her because she's helped me tremendously over the years.
Do you have a memory of something she's done for you that is just you always remember, that just kind of made a mark when you think about her?
Um, I think what I enjoy and have enjoyed most about Sarah is her ability to put into words sometimes things that I'm feeling that I can't even touch with words. She's definitely a word person. She's a writer, and everybody remarks on her ability to speak so clearly and so succinctly and so poetically, really. Uh, I enjoy that. I just enjoy listening to her. I enjoy talking with her about whatever we're doing, watching a film, for example, and her take on things is always so perfect to my mind. Yeah.
Do you express yourself, you think, best in your illustrations?
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm a visual person. Um, that's, I think every artist that I know has something else that they wish that they had been able to do creatively. Uh, Sometimes surprisingly, but because so many of them are so skilled. But I always wanted to be a writer, and I have written certain things throughout my life, books, plays, but words do not come easily to me. Uh, I I've often wondered why, but I keep going back in my mind to something that my old analyst said. He said that a child who has never been picked up, who is infrequently picked up by the mother, reaches out to the world through his eyes, with his eyes.
Hmm.
And I think that's true. Started that long ago.
I've
But
never heard of that. Wow, I didn't know that.
well, it might be something he just thought of.
Wow. It's kind of profound though, if you think about it, right? Because you're always,
Absolutely. Yeah.
you know, for listeners, because obviously I want them to look at your book, but Can you give a summary for my listeners of just the medical traumas you experienced? We were talking about radiation as a child and all of that. Can you give a synopsis for people about what those traumas were, how it impacted you, and then why you ended up running away from home at 16?
Well, as the book Stitches describes, I was, first of all, given massive high dose radiation for sinus problems when I was an infant. And in those days, back in the 40s and earlier, back in the 20s even, the X-ray was considered to be the wonder ray, it was going to solve all the problems of the world. And radiologists were pretty dedicated to that idea. And particularly with children who had sinus problems. And the radiation that I received did nothing to ever touch the sinus problems that I still have. Um, but that was treatment back in the day. And so I got plenty of it because my dad was a radiologist and it was all free. And my brother, too, was given that. And what happened to me was by the time I was 12 years old, I had a tumor growing in my neck because the x-rays that were given in those days just sprayed everywhere.
Mm.
Uh, Nowadays, when you go to the dentist and they give you an x-ray, they can pinpoint it to a very fine area,
Yeah.
and you just receive a fraction of a rad. Whereas what I got was massive doses of radiation. And so this tumor that grew in my neck, as a result of all those x-rays, it just kept getting larger and larger. But my doctor, my father and his cohort who was examining the neck didn't recognize it as a tumor. They just thought it was a cyst. And so they just let it go until I was quite disfigured in my early teens. And it was during Christmas vacation when I was 14 that they decided to open it up. And that's when they found out that it was cancer. And the best thing they did was to sew it back up and not touch it. They sent me to a specialist in Cleveland who got it out and kept an eye on it for the next 10 years. That's something that I sort of rearranged factually in the book. I just made instead of the complication of going to Cleveland and having a new doctor and so on was just something that was a little too complex for the for the reader to put up with. So it was one area where my memoir sort of deviated from the truth. I can't remember how I handled it, but I think I just talked about a second operation. Can't remember. I haven't read the book for a while.
Yeah.
Uh, and
And
then down the line, uh, leukemia, which I still have and get treated for. Um, some other minor problems, but all related to that initial radiation. These things have sort of followed me throughout my whole life.
do you think your father did it just out of um being naive, like just not really understanding? Or
Yeah, I definitely don't want to give anybody the impression that my father was a mad doctor who was experimenting on his children. He thought he was doing the right thing. So,
how, like, how was his reaction to the problems that you continued to have? Was that something that he,
well, he hasn't seen all of them. He died quite a while ago. Um, there's a scene in the book that echoed my the experience of confronting him about what had gone on. Or was it? No, no. He confessed, actually. He had found, he understood that he was responsible for my cancer. And he was the first one to tell me about it. But then he just sort of had to slough it off and I guess preserve himself by not feeling too guilty about it.
And how old were you when he told you that?
Um, 15, 16, something like that.
And when you mentioned earlier about your mom or like not being picked up as much for as a child, that I'm guessing that was your experience.
Mhm.
It was not a very physical, emotionally open um relationship with your parents.
My mother she was a special case herself. Uh, she had had physical problems from the time she was born. Her heart was on the other side of her chest, and all the veins and things that fed it were stretched. So she suffered multiple heart attacks and eventually died of that. She was also a very brittle diabetic. And emotionally, she was a very repressed um, lesbian, uh, which is very difficult to be anything else but repressed and hidden about that.
How did you know that? Did she tell you?
No, I gradually figured it out um, from her behavior and the friends that she kept,
Hmm.
uh, some of whom were lovers. And I had to perceive this kind of underground life that she led from afar. Uh, there's a scene in the book which is from my life. I actually walked in on her in bed with another woman one afternoon after school, and that was a revelation.
How did it make you feel?
I don't think I was very surprised. Um, it made me sad for her, for me. Uh, there was a look on her face when I walked into that bedroom uh, that I tried to translate in the book. Um, it was like it was a moment like that she'd been waiting for or expecting that somebody would find out about her. She just didn't realize it would be me. Um, but you have to understand this was the 50s and the early 60s in America, and it was a time when such things were just not acknowledged or talked about. And our family was especially quiet. And my brother and I, for example, were never allowed to speak our minds or even show any uh, anger or frustration. We just didn't talk about things in our family. So I found out mother was a lesbian. We didn't talk about it.
So your dad never found out, you don't think?
He did. He knew. He knew before I knew. Uh, I went into analysis with a wonderful doctor when I was around 15, and he realized what this relationship was doing to the family. It was even worse than what I described in the book. Uh, my mother had a lover who was uh, a real man hater, and I didn't put this in the book because I didn't want to get into it. But this woman she would come over to dinner once a week and made it very difficult for my father and my brother, uh, insulted them, uh, in weird ways, like you know, playing Mother Superior. And my memory was that after each of these dinners, my father and my brother would get into their separate cars and zoom away, leaving me alone in the house with these two women giving each other ecstatic back rubs on the sofa in the living room. And that didn't sit too well uh, with me psychologically. And so finally, my analyst had to step in and tell my father to tell his wife uh, that either that woman left and never came back, uh, or he would uh, divorce her and take both the boys. And that led to a real crisis in their lives. So it's a real strange situation.
It's painful for you.
Yeah, still bringing it back is painful. But I have to add that writing the book and having the distance of so many years now has enabled me to see my mother, especially as, and my father too, as human beings,
Yeah.
sort of struggling with what they had, being a little more forgiving. But I really was born into a household where nobody understood anybody else, and it was uh, it was hard. They're both dead now. Even my brother's dead, and I can't say that I miss any of them. There wasn't any real empathy going on in there.
Yeah. No, I understand that. Do you, um, I'm sorry, before, and forgive me, I heard, I think, a little bit of it, but I wanted to just confirm. You said you were left alone, and the two ladies, your mom and this other woman, they would talk, you said, a lot, and you would just sit and listen to them?
So they were giving each other ecstatic back rubs on the sofa.
Oh, and you would just watch.
I was there. Yeah.
When you said that messed you up psychologically, what did you mean? Like, did that just, it was really confusing, or did you feel out of place?
Um, well, I was 15 and the hormones were raging at that, as they do at that time of life.
Yeah,
And the woman was um, seductive toward me as well as my mother. And she would sort of play with me. It was kind of I don't mean touching me in any uh, sexual way, but any kind of touch. It sort of aroused me at that age. And so I was confused by uh, this relationship that the two women had and didn't understand how I fit in there or really what was going on. But I remember her being uh, sort of, there was a kind of a danger associated with her being around. I was really glad when she left, when my father insisted that she get kicked out of the house. It was a relief to me.
so she would just, if she didn't touch you, she would just like look at you weird and things like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
That
really,
is, and I'm guessing you couldn't talk, were you able to talk to your mom or dad about the sexual feelings you were having as a kid?
no, 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 no. No, I remember when I was 12 or 13 and first started having erections, I tried to talk to my father about it, and he just said, "Oh, that'll stop. That'll go away." Uh, you know,
And you're like, am I dying?
all right, what's wrong with me? Tell me. Yeah, oh, that'll stop. He wasn't very skilled at talking to his sons about anything.
When you were young, what did you, it was, there was a statement you said where you said that no one understood each other in our home. I think that's very powerful because it's like you can know people, right? And there's a sense of knowing in a very superficial way. Like you know what they look like. Maybe you know what they like to eat. Maybe you know what time they like to get up or go to bed. General information, but when it comes to understanding, it means you know the people more deeply, right? There's a deeper knowledge of a person. It's not just superficial. If you understand them, you know who they are as a person, what they care about, what they love, what hurts them. Um, when you were a young boy, what did you really wish people understood about you, like your family? Like if you could have just talked and said, I wish you understood this about me, what do you think you would have said?
There wasn't ever any question that I could ask uh, my parents about anything so personal. It was all it was all it was all buried. If I wanted anything, there wasn't anybody I could turn to for it. If I needed any emotional guidance or assistance, uh, there wasn't any question that I would ever receive it. So I became an artist. I made little worlds on pieces of paper, and thank God they brought me art supplies. That was a nice thing. My mother was she was she was born lived in poverty during the Depression, and she wanted to marry a doctor for money and prestige and class and so on. And when we were very young, she tried to give me and my brother the things that she thought were appropriate for boys of that station, being married to a doctor. So she did take us to concerts, which influenced my brother. He became a musician, and to the art museum, which influenced me tremendously. But then as we got older and she realized that we weren't going to, that we were both going to become artists in our way, uh, she tried to backtrack completely. Uh, she was very concerned about money. And when it looked like we were never going to be productive financially, uh, she sort of panicked. And uh, that was quite evident that she didn't approve of uh, either of us in terms of our performance in school or the direction that we were taking in so many ways.
Hmm. Did you, when you were young, did you wish you could tell her that you really wanted just to draw and just to be an artist?
No, I didn't realize what I was doing, really. I was just, I love to draw and I drew all the time. And, it just seemed like something that I did. I didn't realize that I wanted to be an artist or that I would become an artist. I didn't know what I was going to do. It was just something I did.
What was the first picture you drew? Do you remember?
Uh, I remember a picture that I did because they had it framed and on a wall in our little house uh, in Maine. Um, and it was of a very angry cartoon bee with an enormous stinger, very looking very furious and in the style of, Looney Tunes, which I adored. Um, I've always thought that was telling, very telling, that I would draw an angry bee because I was an angry kid. So there, I was letting things out in my art at that time. you
What,
know.
how would you display your anger? Was it only through your art, you think?
Yeah,
Or,
I wasn't allowed to show it any other way.
yeah.
It was
Was
like
it,
we lived in a very kind of Soviet regime in that household, you know.
what was your, did you feel relief when you would draw? Did it feel like you were releasing that anger, or did it not really help?
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't remember.
So you drew the beetle, I'm sorry, the bee, which is very interesting. Did you like drawing animals? Like, was there something, a particular thing you liked drawing the most?
Yeah, I loved Disney cartoons when I was a kid. I used to imitate them. I loved a comic strip called Pogo, which was all populated by animals completely. Yeah, I loved animals. I loved my cats. I related to them very deeply.
I
Uh,
love cats too. Do you still love them?
oh yeah, I have two that are wonderful. Yeah, I love cats. I love them above all. And I think our relationship with animals is a very special one because it's based on silence, silent communication, nonverbal. I think it's one of the reasons we miss them so much when they die. Uh, I've cried over the death of my pets much more than I've ever cried over the death of a family member. Um, and I think it's because we have this silent communication with them.
Yeah.
It's very deep.
Well, so they're very intuitive to your feelings, I think, too. You know, they know when you're sad, they know when you're happy, and they seem to be able to respond to that in a non-judgmental way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's true to a certain extent. I haven't decided whether they're really that empathetic with us or if they're manipulating us because uh, they want to be fed. But it doesn't matter.
I I have thought about that too, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just not gonna go there because I don't want that to be the reason.
Yeah, I understand.
But you're right. That may be the reason. Um, when you said you related to cats a lot, what was it about cats you related to? Like just the
They're beautiful creatures. They're absolutely gorgeous. Their poses, their movements, their gestures, their facial expressions, which are so subtle but varied. You know, that's what I love about them. They're absolutely beautiful.
So you think you're a very handsome man? Is that how you relate to the cat?
Eh, I'm sorry, what did you say?
Oh, I asked you how you related to the cat, and you said they're beautiful, so I was like, do you think you're very handsome? So that's how you relate to the cat.
I don't consider myself a very handsome person at all. Uh,
So how do you relate to the cat? Because you said you feel like you relate to them like I was thinking personality wise.
hmm, I think they're like I said, I think they're beautiful creatures. I like having them around.
So like as a creative artist, you just find them something really cool to watch
And
and
they're great
to
to draw too. Yeah.
yeah. Did you
And
have a favorite cat?
I have one now. I always have a favorite cat around. I like
Is
them. I like the black ones. It seems I have a theory about black cats. They're so despised by so many people. They're a symbol of bad luck, but I think they're um, the ones that I've had, and I've had many little black cats that they seem to me more intelligent for some reason, more responsive to me. Uh, and I think this is a crazy theory, but uh, the black cats that I've had especially since moving to the country, when I see where they come from, the litters that they come from, they always seem to be the runts of the litter.
Yeah.
You think that's true? Um, it seems to me to be true. And because they've been the runts, I think they get less attention from the mother. And so they have to fight harder for food and for favor. And I just think that that makes them more interesting.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. My cat is, I mean, he's black and white, so, but I remember when we were thinking about adopting a cat, we were very much like, no black cats. Because we just, we didn't, kind of similar to what you said. It was like, it just, we were like, no, they're creepy and no. And then we met our cat, Knightley is his name, and he's black and white, and I just fell in love with him. He was so affectionate, but we first of all, we never thought we'd get a cat that had that much black. We were like, ah. But then we met him, and he was just such a loving, fun, affectionate cat.
Mhm.
Um, and so now it's kind of changed my whole outlook on black cats, but I agree with you. I don't think that's too crazy. I mean, obviously, you have to test these things to make some sort of this is true kind of statement, but I mean, I think I don't
It's a
it
possibility.
seems to make sense to me though.
It's just from my experience that I think that, you know. And when I hear myself talk about it, I realize that I was sort of the runt of the litter myself and didn't get much from the mother, which who knows how that shaped me. Who knows how, who I am, what I've become was shaped by that kind of lack of affection.
Well, I wanted to ask you because I've always thought, and I didn't grow up with brothers, so I've had a very limited experience of like a male perspective.
Mhm.
And I've always thought that boys really need dads present more than they need moms, and that girls really need moms present more than they need dads because they're the same gender and so they can understand their feelings and their emotions and they can kind of relate to them and be able to guide them. But it's so interesting how many times we've talked about your mom and how much she impacted you in your life. Um, do you like what do you think about that? Do you think that boys really obviously they're supposed to have both parents, right? But
I think
um
I think for boys, it's really, I think for men, I think men need a feminine presence in their lives. I think it's absolutely essential. Uh, I don't think men really know that or really appreciate that, uh, a lot of them. But I think we all have a masculine and a feminine side to us. And I think that's why I think that's why we need a feminine influence in our lives.
do you mean more like when you say the feminine side, like a more emotional, affectionate?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's what I mean.
Do you, um, when you were younger and you were talking about your mom, your dad, and now you said that you've got like a 70-year perspective, so you can look back and you can
80,
see like they're
80 years.
80 years, yeah, that they were broken people. So you kind of have this perspective of like, when you're younger and you're in it, you're like, these people are so mean and nasty and they don't care.
And your parents are stronger and bigger and
Yeah,
larger than you. Yeah, and
eh,
in control of you.
right.
So
Eh,
obviously you look at them differently when you're small, when you're young.
yeah, it's
You,
true.
yeah, And
But
then
then you said as time has gone on, you've been able to have a little more compassion for who they were.
some, yeah,
And I wanted to ask you, do you think you forgive them for all they did to you?
no, no, because what they did was unforgivable. Uh, but I think to understand a person as a human being is the only kind of forgiveness that you can possibly have. Yeah, and I don't forgive them for what they did to me or to my brother. I think he even had it worse than I did. Um, but to understand their motives, what drove them, that's important, and uh, and it's a kind of forgiveness.
How do
And
you
I
think?
don't believe in giving a blanket forgiveness to people who've done done you bad, done you wrong. You know,
Yeah,
I mean, what's the point
I think as humans, we're not really capable of doing it.
of forgiving?
Yeah, not on our own. I don't think we can. Because, I mean, like you said, what's the point of doing that?
Mm.
I mean, people do say, it helps you. You can kind of, if you forgive, then it releases and it kind of releases something for you. But I don't know. When I've thought of that, I'm like, if I'm just doing it for me, that still doesn't seem like a good enough reason. Especially because, as you were talking about, I mean, it's like the people haven't said sorry. They haven't asked you for forgiveness. So I think that makes it harder too.
It's complicated. Yeah, I don't think we're going to solve it here.
No, no.
Mhm.
But I just found that interesting when you said, um, I did want to ask you, um, for your art, um, what do you love most about drawing? Because you were talking about how much, I mean, obviously you could put your emotion into it, you could express yourself through the drawing, and that you find drawing for you to be the best way to express as opposed to words.
Mhm.
What do you think is so beautiful about drawing? And you were talking earlier about how you went to the museum and that was really impactful for you. Was there a certain artist too that was kind of like that you really look up to even now and their art really touches you?
Well, at the Detroit Art Institute, the museum in Detroit, there is a mural by Diego Rivera. Uh, it's an entire room. It covers an entire room, all four walls and up to the ceiling. And it's a story of the car industry. Uh, it's massive. It's engulfing. And when I first saw it, I didn't respond so much to Rivera's style, but just to the idea that I was walking into a book, because that's really what it is. It's panels and it's a history. It's uh, it's a commentary. It's political. It's really moving. It's really anybody who's ever seen it is touched by it. And Diego called it his best work, his best mural,
Hmm.
which I agree. I think it really is. Um, so the experience of a work of art that massive when I was small was, I think, really it was moving and it was enticing, uh, and it really affected me. Uh, I didn't ever have any I've been affected. I've been influenced by a lot of artists, but Rivera wasn't one of them, stylistically. But it it certainly affected me as a kid to walk into a work of art that was that massive and that moving. So that was one uh, influence in a way that came to me early.
Do
Mhm.
you think pictures are just as or maybe more powerful than words, like saying it?
I think they can be.
Yeah.
I think the visual uh, sort of gets into us immediately, gets past all the guardrails and goes straight to the heart. And that's why they're so effective and so dangerous. That's why their use in propaganda is so effective because they get past the the barriers that we set up, and that's I think that's why they are in the ascendant now. I was happy when I felt that first happening that visual arts were being taken more seriously, but I was also a little wary about it, and I still am. Uh, I I have a great respect for literature. I think it's the greatest art form, but it worries me to see it being superseded by movies and cartoons as it, as it is now in our society.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we are. I mean, you're right. We're a very visual society and
yeah,
it's good to have a balance, but I think we're outbalancing the writing and the words. It's not as
yeah, we
important.
certainly are. Yeah, it's we've gone to an extreme with it, and that's worrisome, I think.
What is something, and you don't have to say your most favorite because I don't want to, sometimes that's an intimidating question, but is what work are you most proud of that you've done? Or a work that you are very proud of that you think, yeah, I look at that and I'm like, yeah, I did my best. And that came out the way I wanted it to.
Well, I've had, a very a kind of a varied career in the arts, and in illustration. I think I'm best known for the picture books that I've done, uh, but then there's the graphic novels, uh, which are a different kind of genre and requiring a different kind of approach. And I I would say that Stitches was one of my best works because it's very personal, and I think it was very effective, and people have been really moved by it. Um,
Yeah.
but then there are works in the picture book realm that I'm very proud of too, especially the things that I did with Sarah. Her texts, my art meshed in a very good way. Um, that said, they were some of the most difficult books that I did because I had to step outside of my own um, sensibilities in a way and enter a different point of view.
Hmm.
Um, Sarah, being a very optimistic person, and was and that being reflected in her in the stories that she wrote. I couldn't imagine anybody else illustrating them, but as I said, I had to step outside of my own um, pessimism, cynicism, and adopt a different point of view to make those books. But I'm very proud of what I did.
But that was an act of love for you toward her. I think that's
Yes,
pretty powerful.
absolutely.
is it a gift to you? Like, are you proud of the fact that you have such a beautiful marriage with your wife compared to what you grew up with?
Yes. Yeah, I'm very lucky in that respect. And I think that it's contributed to my to my old age, to my surviving as long as I have. I attribute that very much to Sarah, living with her, the experience of living with her, which I appreciate more and more and more the older I get.
I'm
I knew,
glad that she's an optimist
well, she really is. Yeah,
because I can tell from talking with you, and it would make sense to me that you see the world in a little darker shade, which I do too, so I can understand.
yeah.
I do want to ask you because I'm just curious. Um, because I know some people who have gone through great pain and they have found solace in spirituality or in something like that, or other people have gone through great pain and are like, no, there is, I don't say a point to anything, but I will do my best to live the best I can. Um, what for you, like, where do you think you fall in that spectrum?
Definitely not religious at all. Uh, I think to be kind, to try to be kind, to try to be always kind is the best we can do. Um, I really, really hate the way the country has gone politically because it's so cruel and so, I guess the word is realistic. What these people in power now think of as being uh, realistic, but it's it's simply selfish and and malicious and uh, and I don't see any kindness in it at all toward other people. It's just self-centered and narcissistic and crazy.
Yeah.
I
Do you
don't,
think can I ask, is it more, because I know a lot of people that I have talked to have expressed that religion, specifically Christianity, has been used a lot in the political realm, especially now. And so
mhm.
it's really given a lot of people this distaste for specifically Christianity, but just any kind of religion in general where it's being used to justify things that they just don't think are right.
I agree with that. I agree with that. Yeah, I'm I'm against organized religion, and I don't like Christianity because what I see of it nowadays in general seems to be so contrary to the teachings of Jesus, which were wonderful, but they're being ignored. And yeah, no, no, uh, sorry, not very articulate about it, but it's
No,
not part of
it's
my
okay.
life.
No, it's okay. I was gonna ask you, when do you think it's particularly just the verbiage that's used that seems very different from what
The
Jesus
what?
stands
I'm
for?
sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say, is it the verbiage that's being used that you find, for instance, I'm gonna get very poignant here, and if you want to say I don't want to say this, that's fine. But I'm getting from this conversation that for you, like for instance, right now, President Trump, a lot of what he says, very abrasive, right? It can be very abrasive.
Yeah,
And you reading that and then seeing a reference to God or a reference to something to do with Christianity in there, you're like, but this doesn't seem at all to align
He's not
with,
a spiritual person. He's not. He's just taking on some of the words and the trappings of Christianity to further his own selfish ends. He's a hypocrite and a liar. He's
yeah,
I don't know why so many people follow him. I don't know why they can't. They see what I see, I'm sure, but they interpret his words and his expressions, all of which are repulsive to me. They see them in a different way, which I don't understand.
yeah.
I I don't know why they find the man so attractive and so appealing.
Can I ask what one thing do you find the hardest to understand about him that you really don't like?
I think I understand him very well. I just don't understand his followers. I don't understand the attraction there.
Yeah.
It's I don't get it.
And it's interesting because when you said before, that what you're seeing now in the world, that's a reason why you're not sure you really want to live that much long, but you really just want to live as long for Sarah to be with her.
Yeah, well, we're both old. I don't think there's much of a chance of our having to experience what's coming uh, too badly. I don't know. It's possible we could live many, many more years, I suppose, but you know, the world seems to be coming to an end. Uh, I think that we're just at the beginning of the troubles of seeing people migrating from terrible political situations, terrible physical uh, situations because of global warming. And I just don't see it. I don't see it developing in a good way.
Yeah. I think the news in particular obviously loves the depressing things, so we really don't hear much good at all either. So that can be, at least I have found that to be very depressing on my spirit.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, I did want to ask, because I want to be respectful of your time. We're already over the time I told you, an hour, but I want to have just one more question. If you could draw a picture of what you wish the world looked like just a picture, like it could be an animal, it could be an idea, just a representation of what you wish the world was like. What would that drawing be? If you just had to draw something, a picture to represent kind of the image you have in your mind, if someone asked you, what would you really like the world to look like?
That is a really strange question. uh, I I think I've already drawn it. I think Stitches is full of, and my other books are full of examples of uh, people reacting toward one another um, in a way that would be uh, better. Uh, I guess, I, I don't, I've never considered drawing anything with the kind of ideal um, presence that you seem to be asking me to consider. What do you think?
Maybe, I was gonna say maybe just what you're saying is that the kindness, when you depict people showing kindness, that's that's what you find to be that makes the world better. So that's what you mean, maybe.
I think so.
Yeah.
Certainly, I would not draw a world full of flowers and unicorns. Uh, that,
No,
that's beyond me. I,
no, I think because from what we've talked about, kindness is very important to you. And so I
yes,
would see how images that represent kindness, that does depict a world that you would see as better if people were just more kind.
yeah, I think so.
Well, David, I want to tell you, I'm very grateful to you that you talked with me. I mean, I know you say you're not good with words, but you're very honest, and I think in a very raw and to the point way. And I think that's not something that's very common. So I found our conversation to be very engaging, and I'm very grateful that you took the time. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to talk with me about the your life and about your art. And it was a gift to get to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I hope you have a good day and enjoy the rest of your day and all your art, whatever other art you have coming up.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye, David.